Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host, and we're having another innovator interview, this time with author Tom Brown Jr., who with Randy Walker Jr. has just written a book called Tom Brown's Guide to Healing the Earth. Tom comes to this question of the environment from a very interesting perspective. And welcome to the show, Tom. I want to ask you to begin with telling us how you met Stalking Wolf and who Stalking Wolf was and how he influenced your view of the world.
Well, Stalking Wolf was my best friend's actual great-grandfather, who was a full-blooded Lipan Apache from the Southwest. And when I was 7, I had met him through Rick, my best friend. And Stalking Wolf was 83 at the time. And I grew up in the woods, right on the edge of the vast pine lands of New Jersey. And Stalking Wolf, or we call him grandfather, had his camp very close to where Rick lived. So every day, practically without fail, we would go and visit him and learn from him. And this took place for over nearly 11 years, 3 months shy of 11 years. Where I grew up, there wasn't much to do. I wasn't interested in anything that the other kids were doing. And to me, I had an insatiable appetite for all things that were Native American, survival, tracking, awareness, all of that. So here's my teacher, and he became my best friend. And Rick and I just, every moment we had, we were doing something with him. But he had a passion for not only passing down the old ways, the skills, but also for saving the earth. He knew back then in the 50s that, we were in rough shape. And he kind of drummed that into our heads and showed us examples of how the little things done to the earth can have such grave consequences, that kind of thing. So it was a visual as well as a verbal lesson,
Now, you took that experience and have made that your career in a way. You've taught at tracker school, and you specialize in finding lost people and people who are hiding as well. On the other hand, you're teaching survival skills both in the tracking school and in some different communities around the world where you take folks to do that kind of work. How does that view of the wilderness as a place that can enclose and hide us change your perspective on the way that we think about life today? Or you hit on not only the harm that you can do to the earth, but the things you can do for it to help it throughout your book, for instance, talking about making the wilderness healthier for animals and others.
Yeah, we've moved from the place of being caretakers to that we have to be healers. In other words, we have to take a very strong, more proactive approach to saving what we can that is left of the earth. But survival, when you go out there with nothing, and I mean nothing, you have got to take everything from the earth. And it's, there's two schools of thought in survival. Those people that take things randomly and just butcher the earth, and then those people who take things that need to be taken out of the equation to balance out the landscape. And I look at survivalists as healers of the earth because we can do things in short order that nature can't do for herself in decades. And survival, if you make a mistake, you could be very close to death, and you start to cherish the very plants and animals that walk this and live on this earth with you, that you don't want to do any damage. You want everything that you do to be healing, so that you leave a legacy of love and compassion for future generations, not one that's butchered and sick. And, that's the beauty of it.
And you focus on these small acts of caretaking. Can you give us an example of one that you've recently adopted as you've been learning about the earth? It must be continuing.
I believe, like the Native Americans believe, that there's a spirit that moves in and through all things. And no matter what we do, we send out a concentric ring, whether it be positive or negative. And Just by way of, for instance, going back a few years, I gave a lecture over at a gathering that was in the Pinelands. And I talked for about an hour about awareness in the earth and things like that. And when I was all done, we were out in an area where there's a lot of vendors and stuff, and there was a wind blowing, and I had my Cody at the time, my son, was only about 3 years old, and I had him in my arms, and a hot dog wrapper blew across the lawn. Well, he kicked me and, Daddy, let me down, and ran over and grabbed that paper. And as he grabbed that paper on his way to the garbage can, he grabbed more and more and more until his little hands couldn't hold anymore and threw it in the garbage. Well, I'm watching the people watching him, and all of a sudden, everybody's picking up paper. And here's a little 3-year-old that started the whole ball rolling, so to speak, not a word. And I think he reached more people in that 5 minutes act of kindness and cleaning than I did in an hour. But as I tell everybody, look, you're in the middle of the woods. Nobody's around, and you see a straw or a discarded can or a glass or whatever that's been thrown down. If you pick that up and carry it out with you, nobody sees it. You still send out a concentric ring that is felt. One of the examples I give, you're stuck in traffic. It's slow moving, and there's people trying to get out into the traffic. You know how frustrating that is. So nobody's letting them out. And then just do this. Let that person out. Give them a wave and a smile, and then watch what they do. They'll return the favor to another one and another one and another one. You watch it go down the line. And it's that consciousness that makes such a big difference. And that's, people look at the environment and all the problems that we face and are facing more every day, and they get overwhelmed to a point of paralysis. What can one person do? If everybody could just do one little thing, pick up a piece of paper, plant a tree, whatever, it would make a huge difference. There's an example we give in the book about a man who plants trees every day and brought back a community from the brink of nearly extinction and got the whole community involved in it. Like a Johnny Appleseed in a way, that old parable.
So really what you're saying is survival skills are contributing skills, that they are giving to the world. And by doing so that we're creating a positive force that does sustain and heal the earth.
Yes. It's not like being a gardener, though, where you want everything in order and we're like a city park where there's trees and lawn and that's it. It's just different. This is where you're making sure things are balanced and the right plants and the right animals, and there's not an overabundance of one or the other, that kind of thing.
So let me ask you this. Is modern life a good idea in retrospect?
Yes and no. There's ways of going about things. If people just would question everything they did and are doing or plan to do with the earth in mind, but better, more than the earth, the children and our grandchildren in mind, then we could make adjustments to try to stem the tide, so to speak. An analogy I give is, you're in a kayak and you're just drifting along in fairly quiet water, but there's rapids up ahead. And one side is real heavy rapids. The other is, moderate rapids. And you're right in the middle of it. All you have to do is dangle your fingers in that water for a few moments, and all of a sudden the kayak turns to the less aggressive rapids. If we could make those adjustments now, we're making it better for our children in the future. Simple little things that we can do, like planting a tree or putting more insulation in a house and making it more eco-friendly, for instance, and focus on that. We're a world that is overpopulated, and diseases are starting to run rampant, as grandfather said they would.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to start attacking our livestock, our crops, ourselves, and everything else. Storms are intensifying. This is when you look at the whole of it, it's almost paralyzing. But if you can just do one little thing, no matter what it is, to make it better, even to plant a seed, it's going to make a lot of difference in the future.
So the thing that I was struck by in reading was we use one particular tool extensively, and that is various forms of captured energy. We started with fire. Now it's electricity, burning fossil fuels to generate power, so forth. How do you see changing our reliance on energy as a critical lever for improving the condition of the world?
Oh, exactly. That's why I believe firmly we have to take and pour more into research and development of alternative methods, and stop looking at them as a cliche or, like a flavor of the month type of thing. And taking, even if everybody just took the basic little steps in improving where they live, like infrared, take an infrared picture of your house in the winter and see where the leaks are, and then, get it insulated. You wouldn't believe how many houses you can drive by after a snowstorm and see the snow melting off the roof, not from external heat, but from internal. And these things, if everybody did something like that, imagine how much could be saved. And then, of course, the research and everything else that should go into it. But we got to take a cold, hard look at our lives and, make adjustments, because we are really hurting our children and grandchildren in a big way.
Now, you and your co-author spend a good deal of time talking about examples in the environment, such as the way that squirrels or voles or mouse dens are made. What would you say a couple of ideas for just, you mentioned insulation, but what are a couple of other ideas that I could apply today to reduce my energy consumption based on your experience? For me personally, we live in a society where it's we got to drive every place. And I start to rethink that, and I say, instead of driving, can I bike it? Safely. Trying to find a safe bike path today is like nearly impossible in a lot of areas. But still, if I can make a choice whether to walk or drive, I'll walk. And then when I buy food, I will buy that has the most biodegradable, the least amount of carbon footprint to it. It's just, those are the little things that can be done. I will make sure that the house I live in is insulated properly. I'll in the wintertime, when things get really bad, we'll confine our movements to the more center portion of the house and then drop the heat in the other areas of the house so that it's not eating up so much energy. It's staggering when you think about the mass amount of people, just a mass amount of waste. You don't see it in one person or one family because you're too close to it. But when you back up and see 20,000, 30,000 people doing one little thing to insulate their house better, or take advantage of the light coming from the east and the rising sun, so to speak, to warm the house through the windows, opening the shutters and stuff like that, or the shades, I should say, that would make a monumental change, with that staggering number of people. So the idea that comes to mind is thinking about being with you when you begin tracking someone or something. You step back and you look at the big picture, but you're also looking for the small details that give you the initial orientation.
Grandfather said you move your eyes from the minute to the majestic and back again, and keep it going like that, like a rhythm, a tide, a cadence. So you're picking up the big picture, but yet you're getting to the small detail. And you find that there's a personality that develops in the track. Like grandfather said, an animal or a human is an instrument played by the landscape. and you start reading, instead of the individual track, the entire landscape, and you know which way that person's going to go.
Oh, okay. So it is like reading different kinds of music in the environment, and they're changing one another through their interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Now, tell us a little more about Tracker School. What happens when one attends Tracker School?
Well, Tracker School just had its 40th anniversary last year. Sole proprietorship, me, I guess. And I teach. We have over 100 levels, different levels of education that a person can go through. No repeat, no review, just all new information. But let's take a standard class, which is the people's favorite class. I take them through survival. So that they can go into any wilderness in the world with nothing and survive, and survive like it's the Garden of Eden, not the starvation that you see, on television. For instance, my top level of survival, which is called the expert, is 28 days in the Bob Marshall Wilderness of Montana in the dead of winter. That's, January. My students gain an average of 4 pounds during that class. It
Really?
pisses a lot of people off, yeah. But then you get this television show where they're on an island in the South China Sea, the cornucopia of survival living, and they're losing weight and sniveling. And the difference is the skill. I take them through that kind of survival. I teach them how to track. I tell them, I will teach you in this week to track a mouse across a gravel driveway. And they do. And then I teach them awareness, and I teach them the philosophy of living with the earth, which brings it all together. You see, and that's the standard class. And that shoots off into the philosophy classes, the advanced survival, expert survival, that kind of thing. But I usually, I have a number of instructors that I've trained that come and help me out. And their students are in there for a week. I start them off easy. They're allowed their tents, their sleeping bags, and their teddy bears and whatever else. And then the next class up, called the Advanced Standard, I take all that away from them because they know how to build their own shelter and everything else, that kind of thing. But it's fun. Their total concept of the earth changes. There's no more wilderness. Wilderness becomes home to them. And it's a great feeling.
Now, how would people find out how to attend Tracker School?
Easy. Just go to the internet, trackerschool.com. And you've got some great video there. It's just one word, Tracker School, and then .com.
And now your book, Tom Brown's Guide to Healing the Earth, is out now. It's from Penguin Random House. What are people going to get when they read the book?
Hopefully, they're going to get some peace and go to work, knowing what to do. In other words, to make a difference. People are petrified today. They hear all these horror stories. They're taking place around them. The weather's changing. Life is not the same as it was. And now they can do something simple, not something that's going to break their back. This is my 18th book, and I got a few more to go yet, but it's like this is one of the most important ones because I want to take that stigma of paralysis away from people and give them tangible evidence of how we can make a difference on a single level, even on a family level, without having to face the entirety of the beast, so to speak.
That's, we talk a lot with folks about how incomprehensible climate change is, and it's the whole world reacting to our poor behavior in many cases, and also to our surprising growth as a species. So you don't see this as a dead end. You see this as an opportunity to walk into paradise.
Oh, exactly. You see, a lot of people will believe that it's at our core, like you said, core nature to go out there and survive and do what we can to control nature. But then you look at the cultures through the world that have lived in harmony and balance with the landscape. And you find that where they live, it's a totally different world. It's well balanced. It doesn't have scars and everything else because the people have learned how to take care of the earth. They realize that that is their lifeblood. That is their life. And to do any damage to it is going to bring a lot of suffering. And some cultures learn it, some cultures don't, and they go extinct. They like the Mayans and so many other cultures throughout the world. They just overpopulated.
Sure.
They didn't take the right steps.
And so books like Jared Diamond's Collapse are excellent examples of this having happened in the past. And we face that same choice now, but these small changes can start us down the right path.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all we need to do is enough people believing in that. You look at that saying that I said, the spirit that moves in and through all things. If you look at a flock of sandpipers and you're up close, you can see the individual birds. But then when you back up and you see the whole flock going in one direction, and then in a heartbeat, thousands of bellies flash to the sunlight and the whole flock changes direction. Even when they videotape and play that back in slow motion, they can find no single bird that makes that turn. Instead, they have to say, it seems like a collective consciousness that flows through that flock. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a spirit that once it takes hold, we can change the course of humanity. We just got to get enough people doing it. And how many is enough? Look at it my way. One more person. You have to reach one more person. That's it. And then,
well, Tom, I think you've definitely taken the step with the book. And I want to thank you for joining us today. Do you have any last advice for folks as they start their day today?
The one haunting thing that always stands in my mind is what Grandfather said a long time ago and said a number of times. He said, we're a society of people that kill our grandchildren to feed our children. And if we take that to heart and realize that what we're doing is really affecting our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, then we might have the power to change things, because we don't want to see them suffer.
Well, thank you, Tom. This has been Tom Brown, Jr., who is the co-author of Tom Brown's Guide to Healing the Earth. And you can find out more at trackerschool.com, as well as by checking out the book on Earth911's podcast page. Thanks, Tom. We will be looking forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Sure. Take care now.
And folks, that's Tom Brown. This is Mitch Ratcliffe, Earth911, Sustainability in Your Ear. And we'll be back with another innovator interview soon. Thanks very much for listening. Take care.